I came home from the service and went to work at the local restaurant as a bartender. Back then, you could do that. I want to sit on that sentence because it's the shortest thing I say that carries the most weight. I had no bar experience, no certification, no hospitality degree, no course, no portfolio. Somebody looked at me, decided I could probably learn, and put me behind a bar. And I learned. I got good. Good enough that 15 years later, on a night in South Beach, being able to say, "I've bartended before," changed the entire direction of my career. And I'll tell you that story. But it started with somebody taking a shot on a 19-year-old who'd just been sent home sick from the only plan she had. You cannot do that now. Try it today. Walk into a decent restaurant with no bar experience and ask for a bar job. You need 2 years experience minimum. You need certifications. In a lot of places, you need a specific alcohol service card before you're allowed to touch anything. And I want to be careful here because some of that is genuinely good. Alcohol service is legally serious. I've written an entire refusal script library and a section on dram shop liability. And I did that because over-service can end a life and end a business. And "we didn't know" isn't a defense in any state I've worked in. So I'm not standing here nostalgic for a time when nobody was trained. I'm the training woman. That would be an odd position for me. Here's what I'm actually saying. We added the requirements, and we never built the ladder. We made it harder to get in, and we did not build a way in. Because those two things are supposed to go together. Every serious trade figured this out a century ago. My husband is in the building trades, sheet metal and pipe fitters, and those unions have apprenticeship. You come in knowing nothing. There's a defined path. You earn while you learn. At the end, you're a journeyman, and everybody, including you, knows exactly what you can do. Restaurants have requirements with no apprenticeship. We say, "You need 2 years of experience." And the kid says, "How do I get 2 years of experience?" And we say, "Come back when you have 2 years of experience." So what happened? The door I walked through closed. And the industry acts surprised that it can't find people. We can't find people because we stopped making them. The bar I walked into 30-some years ago was, whether anybody used the word or not, an apprenticeship. Somebody taught me. Somebody let me be bad at it for a while. Somebody corrected me. That system existed. It just wasn't written down. So when the industry got faster and thinner and more scared, the first thing to go was the part nobody had documented. That's the pattern. Undocumented things die first. Every good thing about this industry that lived only in somebody's habits is gone now. The training, the mentorship, the willingness to take a chance on a kid who seems capable. The recipes survived because we wrote those down. That's why I do what I do. That's the whole thesis right there in one sentence. The reason I've spent years building written role modules and certification ladders and trainer standards and 30, 60, 90-day paths is not that I love paperwork. I promise you I don't. It's that I got in through a door that isn't there anymore. And I would like to build it back in a form that can't quietly disappear when the industry gets scared again. There's a moment every server has where they want the floor to open up and swallow them. Mine involved clarified butter. I was at Mike Gordon's seafood restaurant. A customer reached out for his own plate before I'd set it down, and I need to say this directly to anybody who eats in restaurants because it's happened to me twice and both times went badly. Please don't reach for your plate. Let it land. The server has it balanced in a way you can't see. She knows the angle, she knows where the hot spots are. She's already planned how it's going down. The second you grab it, all of that is gone. He grabbed it, and clarified butter slid right into his lap. He was wearing nice khaki pants covered in nasty butter. I was mortified. I burst into tears right there in front of him, in front of the table, in front of everybody. And he was probably one of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of waiting on. He was kind. He did not use the accident as permission to be cruel. He did not turn my mistake or the awkwardness of the moment into a performance of power. He saw that I felt terrible, and he responded like a human being. I have never forgotten that. I'm telling you about it decades later. Here's what I want to pull out of it. That man will never know he's in a book. He'll never know a woman he met once for 20 minutes has told that story in training rooms for 30 years. He probably forgot it by the time his pants were dry. He had about 3 seconds to decide who to be. Butter in the lap, a crying girl, a room watching. And what he did in those 3 seconds is still working, right now, in this recording. I think about that when people tell me hospitality is just service, not a real career. A stranger's 3-second decision is still shaping how I train people 40 years later. That's not small. Now, here's the part that makes this more than a nice story. I burst into tears in front of a guest. Think about what that actually tells you. Not about him, about me, and about the building I was standing in. I had no idea what to do. Nobody had ever taught me how to recover from a spill. Nobody had walked me through what you say, how you handle the guest's clothing, whether you offer to pay for cleaning, who you tell, what the manager needs to know, how you finish the table afterward without the whole meal being about the accident. None of that had ever been said to me. Not once. So when it happened, I had nothing. And when a person has nothing, they don't stand there calmly, they flood. Tears aren't a character flaw. Tears are what happens when a nervous system has no procedure to hang on to. That's the piece almost every restaurant gets wrong about recovery. We train the good path. We train the greeting and the sequence and the upsell. We train what to do when it works. We do not train the spill. We do not train the wrong entree, the allergy, the 40-minute ticket, the guest who's been drinking, the table that's been sitting so long they've stopped talking to each other. And then a 19-year-old hits one of those on her 4th shift, and she freezes, or she cries, or she disappears into the back, and somebody decides she's not cut out for this. She was cut out for it fine. Nobody gave her a single sentence to say. Every recovery framework I've built since, every one, in every module, for every role, comes out of standing at that table with butter everywhere and nothing in my head. I don't want anybody else to have that experience if I can help it. I got extraordinarily lucky in the guest I got. Luck is not a system. That's the whole point of my life's work. I worked at the Rascal House in Miami. If you're too young or you weren't in South Florida then, I need to describe it because it was one of the great ones, and the world doesn't make them like that anymore. It took up almost an entire block. One restaurant, a block. 100% kosher, which, if you've never worked in a kosher kitchen, means an entire architecture of separation and observance built into how the place physically operates. It's not a menu decision. It's a building decision. We made every piece of every kind of bread. Every one. Not a truck at 4 a.m, us. And there was a dessert station right in the window, so the people waiting in line could watch. That was deliberate. Somebody with real sense understood that the wait is part of the experience, and if people have to stand there, give them something to look at that makes them hungrier. That's hospitality thinking applied to a line. Most restaurants treat the wait as a problem to apologize for. Rascal House treated it as part of the show. Now let me tell you what actually happened to me there, because that's the part I've never been able to put down. I was younger, still learning who I was in this industry. I had a gentleman at a table. I was getting ready to set his plate in front of him, and he grabbed hold of it. Same thing. Of course, he spilled it. And then he started dressing me down in front of the entire restaurant. There are moments in service when you can feel every eye in the room. The room got hot, the way a dining room gets hot when everybody near you can feel that something has gone wrong. Every server nearby slowed down without meaning to. Every set of eyes found our table. And I'm standing there holding the plate and the mess and his anger and my own embarrassment and the pressure to stay professional while the other person is doing no such thing. I don't know what I expected from my manager, but I know what I got. He walked over, and in one sentence, he changed the temperature of the room. He told the gentleman he had crossed a line with disrespectful behavior, and he backed me, in public, without hesitating. That's the whole story. It isn't complicated, but I want you to understand what happened to every person in that dining room in that moment. Not just me. Every server working that floor learned something permanent about where they worked. Because if he had sided with the guest to keep the peace, and that is what most managers do, let's be honest, every one of us would have learned the same lesson. You're on your own out there. Instead, we learned what it feels like to be protected. That is not a policy. You cannot write that in a handbook. It's leadership delivered in real time on an ordinary night. And here's what it taught me, which I've built an entire philosophy on since. There is a difference between a manager who protects the guest and a manager who protects the culture. The guest mattered. Guests matter. I've given my life to guests. But that guest did not have the right to humiliate an employee. If you let guests abuse your staff in the name of hospitality, you are not building hospitality. You are building fear. Employees watch those moments. They watch what managers tolerate. They watch who gets protected. They watch whether respect is a real standard or just something they're expected to give without ever receiving. 2 men grabbed a plate out of my hands, years apart. One chose grace, one chose humiliation. I couldn't control either one. What made the difference in how I remember them isn't the guest at all. It's who walked over afterward.